Welcome to the castle. This is the Kings of Honor Twitch channel. We welcome you all here for our very first dev talk stream content that we're organizing. I am Sir Ivory Knight. I'm here with Sh0ppo. Sh0ppo, who are you?
Yes, thank you, Ivory Knight. Welcome everybody to our stream, our very first stream. So I hope you're gonna be nice to us. My name is Sh0ppo from the tiny little Niners Gaming channel, and I'm happy for everybody to who came out. Please feel free to ask any questions, join us, comment on it, and we're gonna pick it up and make you part of the stream. Back to you, Ivory.
Thanks. What we're going to be doing this or what are we going to be doing right now? So we're going to be talking about the latest dev diary for Knights of Honor Sovereign, which is also Knights of Honor 2. And in this talk, we're going to talk about what they said in that dev diary. So we're going to give you a very quick summary, as quick as we can. Then we're going to talk about some of the questions that were brought up both on the forums and in the live Twitch that the devs organized. And we're going to give you guys our own comments and, just chat about it a little bit, feel how things are. Okay, so Sh0ppo and me discussed. I think I'm going to handle the summary. So to begin with the summary, what is a tradition? Well, the Dev Diary and Dev 10, we're talking about traditions, and we added traditions into Knights of Honor 2. But before we talk about traditions, the devs kind of dropped a little theme of how they wanted Knights of Honor 2 to kind of feel like. And one of the themes they wanted to push was that in Knights of Honor Sovereign, you're not playing a king, or you're not playing say like a knight or a person in medieval world. The theme of Knights of Honor 2 is that you're playing as the kingdom or like a country. And so they wanted to give the player a feel of progression, that okay, you as the kingdom are growing in some way. And the way they did that is by introducing these traditions. So the traditions basically stay with the kingdom for as long as you have them, and they give your kingdom certain benefits and things like this, and they can never be lost. So they allow that certain progression that the devs are kind of hoping for in the theme. Another big thing is that they can be replaced though. So once you acquire a tradition, you're not stuck with it forever. You can switch it out. So how do we acquire these traditions? Well, first of all, traditions come from skills. So in Knights of Honor 2, you have what's called this royal court. And in this royal court, we have your knights. And each knight can acquire a random skill. These skills come to them in random events or other methods. And once a knight has a skill, they can level that skill up. When they get to level 3, as the kingdom owner or ruler, you can then adopt a tradition that is, in a sense, linked to that specific skill. So say, for example, we took like a skill such as horseback riding or like heavy cavalry. And I think in the Dev Diary which one did they use? Do you remember?
The cavalry tactics.
Cavalry tactics. So
Yeah,
you're a
yeah.
knight. You adopt this. You get the skill cavalry tactics, and after you get some more experience with your knight in your royal court, you then can upgrade your knight up to level 3. Once he's level 3, now your kingdom can purchase a tradition that is basically cavalry tactics, but a tradition that's related, that is tied to cavalry tactics. And so this tradition.
Basically, so a tradition is kind of a skill or boost for your kingdom, not the knights, but a kingdom, right?
Yeah, so the tradition is the boost. It gives you boosts for all across the kingdom, whereas
Yeah,
the skills
yeah.
are more specific to just the knight. But to first acquire that tradition from that skill does need to be upgraded all the way to level 3. Now, that means that might take some time for your knight to get to that point. One benefit is that if you have a king and your king acquires any skill, kings can acquire skills as well. Those skills get acquired instantly to level 3. And so kings offer a route, probably the quickest route to acquiring a tradition. Traditions themselves are very similar to skills. they can also be upgraded to level 3. So once you acquire a tradition, it's not just fixed. You can then upgrade it further to a level 3, which gives you more benefits and things like this. As I'm showing here, you can acquire up to at the moment the devs have put in 8, but they're working with this number of how many traditions you can have. There are, I believe, 30 skills in the game, so that means out of 30 skills, you only can get about 8 traditions out of that 30.
Yep.
And the way you unlock, or traditions have to be unlocked. There's a bit of progression to this. So once you acquire your first tradition, you then need to you need to increase some prestige to acquire the next unlock in this progression. So once you have enough prestige, then you can get all the traditions. Then the devs did mention that prestige can also be gained or lost, and this was interesting because none of the comments or questions we looked at or heard through the dev talks was saying that, well, what if the prestige, if you can lose prestige and say you lose a province, which the devs confirmed is a way to lose prestige, then does that destroy your tradition, or does that just freeze your tradition out, or do you still have your tradition, you just can't unlock more? What do you think would be the best, or what do you think would be more functional for the game, Sh0ppo? Do you think you'd like to have the prestige destroy tradition, lock it out until you get your prestige back up, or what's your feelings on that?
I kind of feel like if you lose a prestige, I feel like you should maybe also lose, this tradition from this level. Um, I can't tell you what the developers probably favor. I'm pretty intrigued about that too. I don't have they in oftentimes they approach it historically, but I can't tell you what would be the historical approach. But for me, it would make sense to just lose the tradition, so it
If
gives
prestige
you.
kind of represents like your overall kingdom strength in a way, like how prestigious your kingdom is, maybe if you lose prestige, maybe it does make sense to like lose a tradition. Like you lose it and you have to get more prestige, and then you can unlock, and then it like refreshes that slot, so then you can put in a different tradition because now your kingdom got its prestige back, and the traditions that are under your kingdom are now, say, a bit different. That you know.
Would you like to if you lose prestige and then lose the tradition, would you rather like it to choose a new one or to just reactivate the tradition you already had? What do you think on that?
Yeah, and it's an interesting thought, and I don't know exactly the answer to it. So we've talked a lot about traditions, and I didn't quite finish. What do traditions do? Well, basically, why do we want them? Well, they give, like I said, maybe a bit earlier, they give general boosts to things all over your kingdom. Now, these boosts aren't just statistical number boosts. Sometimes they can be new like actions that you can implement in your kingdom. So you might be able to say with a spy, do a new action with your spy in your court when you have a certain spy tradition. So that's very interesting. Uh, Traditions can also allow a knight to acquire the corresponding skill that's linked with it. So remember how I mentioned a bit earlier that if the way you acquire a tradition is through having a knight with a level 3 skill, or your king with a level 3 skill. Well, vice versa. If you have a tradition, any knight you, say, recruit to your royal court can immediately acquire the skill that's linked to that tradition. So that's an interesting caveat that the devs made into the game, because it means that in long-term play, you might want to prefer like a certain tradition, because you'll always be able to put that skill onto your knights when you recruit them into the court. So I think that's about summarizes everything to do with traditions as fast as we could there.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think so too. Yeah.
Sh0ppo, so give us a question that the devs discussed and talked about and about traditions, and let's get some back and forth banter on it.
Right. We had quite some interesting and really good questions. And got pretty good information from the devs themselves. So one question was if would the traditions be kind of like more sandboxy, or is there a limitation for certain countries? Like for Vikings, it is typical to have I don't know, more strong and massive units, and for Muslimic countries, it is typical for to have cavalry units. But the dev said, or yeah, what actually
No, I'm
should we
so
remember?
glad you brought that up because that was actually, I believe, my question, my own question on the forum, which was that do traditions get kind of guided in a certain way? Is there benefits or
Yeah,
costs that force a player in the game to go down a certain tradition route? Like, oh, okay, I need to pick this tradition because it synergizes well with something else happening in my kingdom. And then, like you said, the devs decided they really, really want to stick to a kind of sandbox feel. So there's not much that forces a player to go down a tradition route, but they did mention that if you have a pagan religion, that you don't have the regular tradition set to select from. So I think that might mean that the skill set might be also a little slightly different for them. But what that means is that pagans don't have the same kind of tradition set up. We don't know much more than that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
They just
interesting. And then
they just to put some more information in there. They just said that pagans do have some disadvantages,
yeah,
and they want to make up for it by giving them special or maybe more. They haven't decided yet. Um, yeah, more traditions. Yeah,
yeah, and I think even though they want to keep it really sandboxy, they did subtly mention that this that over the realm of Europe, that certain unit types will be available in regions. And what this means is if you have a kingdom that's mainly localized in a certain region, that unit type could be like camels in Egypt, or like Vikings in Norway, longbowmen in England, all these different type of units. They might acquire double benefits or get really strong with a certain type of tradition. So even though they
yeah,
want it really sandboxy, I think they are leaving it slightly open to have some guide to tradition. So if you really want to like eke out those advantages in like a playthrough in the game, it seems like the way you want to work your traditions is what units are special to my kingdom, what traditions benefit those units the most. I don't know. Do
actually,
you yeah.
actually, if a kingdom is pretty open and freely to decide on their tradition, is it possible for me as a player to see what on a multiplayer other players have as traditions, or what the AI has chosen as a tradition for their kingdom?
Yeah, so the devs mentioned that, and from what was answered was that there is no relation to any kind of historical context of why an AI wants to choose a tradition, and the AI doesn't seem they didn't mention much about why AI chooses a particular tradition or not, which is maybe room for modders in the game to kind of develop a real strategical base for why an AI tries to go down certain traditions. Um, so that's interesting. That's for sure an open area that wasn't really pressed too much, and we'd like to see more discussion about that. They did also ask. Somebody asked, does the cost of acquiring a tradition increase with the size of the kingdom? So in order to acquire the condition, a tradition, not only do you need the level 3 skill and the prestige, but you also need books and money. And so the question is, do the cost of books and money to purchase a tradition increase with skill? And they simply answered yes. And I think that makes perfect sense that the bigger country you are, it should scale so that you need to effectively save in the same time frame as another kingdom would have to. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I think that totally makes sense. Like my opinion on it is, if your economy gets larger and larger, you will much faster acquire new books and gold and everything. And getting new traditions should adopt to it. So that's kind of my
Yeah, because if
point
you're a
of view
really
to
big
it.
kingdom, then you could just quickly switch out all these
Yes.
traditions, replace them with books and money all the time, and you could basically just fight a war, and then oh, I'm having a this battle with this kind of unit type. I'll just switch all my traditions so I can, and I think that would, in a way, take away from the game in a lot of ways because you don't want Knights of Honor 2 is about being more approachable than other RTS games, like as opposed to like Europa or CK3, where there's a lot of micromanagement and a lot of things to manage. And Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign is not about huge amounts of management. It's supposed to be a more approachable game to general people.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more action focused.
Hmm.
And to add something more to it, the approach from the developers to it was pretty logical. They said, okay, if your country gets bigger, there is more people in it, so you need to put in more effort to make the people adopt a new tradition. So yes, the tradition
Yeah,
acquiring will get more and more expensive
and
throughout the progression of the game. Yeah.
historically context, I think you're totally right, and it might even make sense to do the opposite of, or to actually scale the cost, but in the negative way, so that the bigger you are, the more it costs, and that actually might make the game uh, feel even better because it means if you're a big established kingdom, it takes a lot of books and money to switch a tradition, which I would think would probably make sense if you're like a larger kingdom. It's hard to get your whole population to
Yeah.
agree to a tradition switch. If we want to take the word tradition for its actual dictionary meaning. Um, Another question that was asked was, can you see other kingdoms' traditions? And I thought this was a really good question. And the way the dev said, they said, well, at the moment, you can see other traditions, but only the great powers. And I think if you look to the browser here, this is what they were talking about. So I believe these are the great powers, and you can click on these and see those traditions. But they mentioned that you can't see the traditions of lower powers. So and there's tons of countries in Knights of Honor too. So how do you feel about this, Sh0ppo? Do you
Yeah,
think?
that's basically what I kind of asked earlier. And as I recall it, they just said at the moment, at the current status of the game, they said you can see everything, but they're gonna reconsider it because Alex from the
Oh, so they
development team
said you
said
can see all the traditions of any country. I thought they just said just the great powers.
at first, at the moment, he said you can see them, but he much more likes the idea that you can't see them, and that yeah, basically for like they brought up the example of the Roman Empire, which was pretty big, pretty powerful, and well known, and the other countries knew what Rome was all about, the Roman Empire, and that's what I want to do within the game, or maybe want to do. We actually don't know it 100% at the moment, and they also said that it would be a maybe an idea to have spies or diplomats
Yeah. So
bring
this
back
will
this
this
information.
is what I
Yeah,
was thinking was that it maybe on like a ledger you open up or like exactly like this screenshot right here. You can see the great powers. You can click on them, see the traditions. But if you want to see the traditions of a small kingdom, then like you said, sending a spy or diplomat, giving them an ability to search, say, discover traditions of kingdom or something, allowing you to have another mechanic there that allows you to maybe get an advantage by seeing what another country has and being able to work around that a little bit. Uh,
yeah,
so I think that would be interesting.
yeah,
My only
yeah.
concern with adding that kind of mechanic would be maybe adding too many small mechanics like like this that don't give a lot to the game because maybe a lot of people won't take advantage of that. Maybe it's really pointless to see the tradition of a small kingdom that you're just gonna like kill in one war. And like why waste the time to click on the spy, send him over, waste your spy on that time. So I think if we are given the ability to see other small countries through uh, skills that the spies and diplomats implement, I think it really needs to be worthwhile. There needs to be something that's like really gained from seeing a tradition of another country.
I'm I'm really not quite sure about it too. I mean, if you want to attack a really big country and pretty much developed country, so it could make sense to check it out. But if you are way more powerful than the other country, to just
Yeah, like what if you're a
I would
great
do
power and you
you
want to
just
attack
rush
a
it.
small
Yeah,
country? Then
you
it
you
seems
just rush it.
pointless
Yeah.
to just check their traditions.
Yeah.
Just you're gonna
But
roll over them, steamroll them anyways.
actually, yeah, sure, absolutely. But from the idea and this logical approach, I really can feel that. Like I like the idea that that makes sense.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
how it basically would work within the real world, or how it does work within the real world. So um, I'm pretty interested in how they will play it out finally, and how it will
Another,
be for us as a players to figure this out and
I
how
totally
it feels
agree.
in the game.
Another
Yeah.
great question that was brought up was, can you acquire traditions from, say, conquering another
Oh
country,
yeah. Yeah.
marriages with another country, or say vassalizing another country? And the answer was no at the current moment, but the developers said they were for sure thinking about doing something around this. Um, they did mention that you can build a building and that will give you the ability to unlock a tradition. So like it's as if the building acts as a level 3 skill. So that was quite interesting. So
Did did I tell any details on it? Like, it
they
would it be a maybe a monument or a university?
I suspect that's probably the case, but they did not mention any details. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
and so that is another route for to acquire traditions. Not only do you need a, or sorry, you don't only need a knight of level 3 to acquire a skill, but you can also build a building, special building. We don't know what it is to get a level 3 type skill access to a tradition. Um,
I
now, but
just another. Yeah.
the
Sorry.
core of the question was traditions from conquering or marriages vassals. What do you think about that, Sh0ppo?
Honestly, I haven't really made up my mind about it, because if you, let's say, if you conquer 5 or 6 countries and they all had traditions, I mean, conquering 5 or 6 countries can happen pretty fast. So that would mean that you can acquire traditions pretty fast too, or are they maybe linked to your prestige level? Or I don't know. I have like a lot of questions
I
towards that topic, so I can't really make up my mind, honestly.
I think it was an interesting question, but
Sure. Yeah.
think I lie on the opposite side. I don't want to see a country like you said. You could just conquer like 5 countries at
Yeah.
once, and then you would
Yeah.
have like a selection of like tons of different traditions, and it doesn't seem right. And historically as well, I would say, at least for conquering, like if you conquer a country, that doesn't mean you want to adopt their traditions per se, right? Like there have been battles in history between countries that with quite different cultures that you wouldn't want to be associated with the other. Um, so I don't know if that fits historically. They did mention though marriages. I think in a similar fashion, it's almost even worse for marriages because like
Yeah.
tons of different people got married in the past, and uh, I for sure just because you were married to say a person like a person from Austria or something doesn't mean that your whole kingdom was able to appreciate the Austrian culture, right? Like that never happened.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would
I mean,
really count it
what
out of
what
marriages.
what just came to my mind? If you conquer another country that had their tradition and the population is stuck and adopted to that tradition, um, maybe that's the basis for some riots, or the chance for riots is higher because people are quite different to your people and are used to
Ah,
different
yeah.
traditions and
You know
whatever.
what? That
So
sounds really interesting because you could not only just associate the traditions with, say, the political map of your country, but maybe over time, say, a particular
yeah,
province
yeah,
develops an affinity for the tradition set that your kingdom has. So say the longer a county has your tradition set, the longer they say they go up to like 100% enjoyment of a certain type of tradition. Then when that county gets taken over by say a rival country, then all of a sudden the tradition set doesn't match and there's now conflicts and stuff. That would be interesting, and it would also provide some interesting ways to guide players in their tradition picks, because it would be like, oh, okay, I'm going to conquer counties around me. What kind of traditions? And that would give you more reason to check the traditions of other countries
Yeah,
around you,
yeah,
because then you
yeah.
could see, okay, oh, they have this tradition. Okay, then I know I want that tradition as well, because when I conquer them, there would be less rioting.
Okay, you know what? We just figured out a solution for the problem we just brought up earlier.
Yeah,
We're gonna have to tell the devs. For
yeah.
sure, we gotta do that. What you
Email
think?
them the how to make their game. Just kidding. They're doing a great job, and
Yeah, yeah. I got a
I'm
pretty good
blown away
feeling
with all
about
the
it.
work they've done. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, if you approach traditions like the way we just figured out or talked about, that would give traditions some kind of cultural vibe. You
Yeah,
know,
of course.
adopting another just conquered province to your kingdom, maybe just through time, or it will make it harder to, um, yeah,
And
make
I
them
think
adapt to you.
the core of the word tradition is it feels culture-y, right? Like it's traditions tend to be
Sure
associated
must.
with culture,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so it right now as it is, it doesn't fully feel like something that's kind of associated with culture. But I think with the way we described it, where traditions start to get attached to your counties, then they start to feel more of a cultural thing, and they become more important in the game to take notice of and to put attention on. Which I don't. I think the big question, like we obviously don't have the game, and we don't know what other features they have. So maybe they have a bunch of other features that are going to be awesome, a bunch of other mechanics that need to be managed and taken care of, and they don't want to develop this mechanic much. But then again, who knows? Maybe they do. Maybe they want to develop this much more. So, uh,
Actually, if we talked about a lot of stuff right now, um, and I think it quite of sounded complex, which it may be, but the what I really like about Knights of Honor, and which is quite contrary to um, the Paradox title, like Crusader Kings,
mhm.
um, you have a lot of different approaches and topics in it, but it is way easier to manage them. And
Yeah, and that's the theme of the game, right? That is the theme of the
yeah,
game. Is that it's a cross between something like Europa and something like Total War, Shogun, or the Total War series.
oh,
Um,
actually, we got a new follower, so welcome to Devolutionarian. Welcome back to the castle. Actually, I'm great for having you here. Thank you for your follow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for the follows. And hopefully, we'll keep pumping out content, and this will become a pretty popular channel, and we'll bring to you all the best stuff from Knights of Honor 2 and all the important
Yes,
stuff that
yes,
needs to be talked about.
yeah.
One more question here I got is
Mhm.
this was your question actually, and it was you asked the devs if a level 3 king uh,
Yeah, yeah.
does a king when he acquires a skill, is it only for the first skill that he gets the immediate level 3, or is it for any skill that he acquires? And the devs were pretty clear on this, and I suspected too that it would be for any skill, and they
Yeah.
said it is for any skill. They did put a caveat on the end of that, which was uh, if you have a certain tradition, princesses can also acquire the ability to get a level 3 skill. So that's another like small route, and apparently they mentioned for some reason that princesses can be very powerful and useful in the game, which is nice because they were kind of useless in the Knights of Honor 1. uh, but it's also interesting that you could acquire a tradition that allows you to, in a sense, acquire more traditions quicker. Because if you acquire a tradition that gives your princess the ability to acquire level 3 skills,
Yeah.
then that gives you more room to unlock.
Yeah.
But
But
it depends on how quickly you get books and money and prestige. Maybe those will be the kind
true,
of
true.
limiters to your progress in the tradition tree.
But do you know what the bad thing about this tradition is?
What?
It really makes you wanna put your king as a marshal. And within Knights of Honor 1, I never did that because I was scared that if he does some bullshit within the field and he gets killed,
Whoa, hold on.
maybe I can
You're
have a
the one
problem.
controlling this, guys. It's your bullshit that's happening in the field. Don't blame your own king.
Yeah, I mean, if I do battles manually, but I just did auto battle all the
Okay.
time,
Yeah, okay.
and then I forgot about them and lost like quite a lot of troops and armies and marshals.
But yeah, and they mentioned that for a little bit in the stream was that kings are very powerful marshals, and how powerful it will be yet to be seen until we probably get our hands on the game. But hopefully they're just in that sweet spot where you don't know what should I do. Should I put my king into the field? Should I not? Or maybe it's a thing that it's good to have, but only when you're like you're fighting against the odds, and it's like last resort, and you're like, oh geez, I need to throw my king in there. Hopefully he will survive the turmoil.
As a hero.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I,
actually,
I'm
like one other thing that I have on my mind is that when I run through this diary and the last diary, which was on skills, the skills within your royal court, so the skills of your knights.
Yep.
Um, so we had like the skills of the knights, we had traditions, we had prestige, and I was like, oh man, that's gonna be so complicated. That's not like Knights of Honor, and I really didn't like that. So I was scared that it loses this Knights of Honor touch and this easy approach to it.
But I think
Um,
it's easy because your knights, like we
yeah,
already knew ahead of this diary that knights acquire skills. So that was a mechanic we knew, and it exists. And it's very simple. It was in Knights of Honor 1. Like almost every game has it, so your character can acquire skills. People know what that is. And
yeah,
then on top of your skill, you can acquire a tradition for your kingdom, which is just more or less just a really buffed skill, but for your kingdom.
yeah. Um, like when I run through the Death Diary, um, I was feeling like, oh, it's gonna be fine. The prestige thing just will get figured out by itself, and I just have to check. Okay, do I have enough prestige? Um, and yeah, in the end, I think that there's a lot of interlinked factors, but they play out pretty easily for us as players, and so we can focus on conquering basically and making our kingdom more powerful.
Yeah, I hope though that in the end the game gets advertised to a lot of people that say are a bit scared or worried about complex RTSs, because this is not like that. It's not a complex RTS. It's not Europa. It's not CK3. It's. I would argue it's probably even going to be less complex than something like Total War, and
Yeah, yeah,
if you're a new gamer, or you're not, you don't, you always shied away from these complex strategies because you're like, oh, there's gonna be so much reading and there's so much content to the game, it's gonna take so long to learn. I don't think Knights of Honor Sovereign's gonna feel like that. There's gonna be a learning curve a little bit. Any game will have that. But in terms of the RTS genre, I think this will be one of the lowest ones.
it yeah. I think it's gonna be quite approachable for when you try it out the first time,
Yeah,
as a Knights of Honor fan, or even if you totally new to the series, and yet it still gets some long-term motivation for you, and it offers through traditions um, quite a lot of different tactics and strategies that you can develop or explore. Um, I think that that's like one thing that I really like about Knights of Honor, and they figured that out in as far as we know it by now, and as it was in Knights of Honor, they figured that out perfectly.
I think
They
one
really
thing
did
that
a really great job there.
they're
Yeah,
probably going to bring to Knights of Honor 2 that's not in Knights of Honor 1 is, so you mentioned what they brought over that was the same, is this approachability. Anybody can play Knights of Honor 1. Super simple.
Yeah.
But I think in this game, what they're going to do is they're going to make it approachable, just like Knights of Honor 1. However, it's going to be easy to learn, hard to master. So
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of crazy, deep strategies that are going to be really wonky, I bet. Like, especially with these tradition and skill and all the things you can do with your royal court. And,
Yeah. Space,
and
for example. Yeah.
yeah, and some of the mechanics in terms of like how you can build units because they cost population points and that costs then your like resources of your kingdom. So there's going to be a lot of depth to the game, but it's easy to grasp the basic mechanics that you'll need in order to just say win your first game. And but then if you want to win your first game doing something a bit more difficult or fighting in multiplayer, for example, which will be in the game,
Oh yeah.
you might need to hone your skills in a bit more in terms of what's good, what's the not just good, what's the best choice uh, in your circumstance. Do you have another question, or are we running out of them?
No, I think we mentioned all the most important and interesting ones, and the ones with the best information from the developers with a lot of information.
Hmm.
Do you have anything on your list? Any question?
No, I exploited my list, but I will. So I think we'll close up the stream then. I
Yeah.
will apologize. I don't have my webcam on to any viewers and people viewing this in the future. But I will be getting my webcam, hopefully for the next stream. So you guys will be able to see my beautiful face. Instead, the developers actually, I let's mention that
Oh yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. Like that's like
so this
that
picture that
was
I
like the
have of
most
me.
that was the most important part of the stream actually.
Probably, yeah. This picture I have of me is a replica of my real face, and I had sent the devs in the forums a picture of my face, and I asked them, "Yo, can you set me up as a knight in the game? Can I get a picture of myself in the game?" And they were able to do it. In fact, here I am in the dev diary itself. So that was surprising. And but what's good about it, Sh0ppo? Tell us why. What else they said about these portraits, or do you remember what else they said about it?
I think I know what you mean because you were like the first one or the guy who had the idea put in the your picture,
Mm-hmm.
and then Javor adopted to it. He really liked the idea too. So shout out to Javor here. And he uploaded a picture of himself too. And they also put it the into the game and
Yeah,
show it on the stream.
yeah. So
And
that's the
they
thing they mentioned is that in the game they didn't like have an artist go on like Paint or Photoshop and make my face here. They used built-in features in the game. So what this means is anybody who ends up buying Knights of Honor 2 is going to be able to just make their own face in the game. I think Bannerlord has this kind of feature, so you basically open up and you can just design your face. So I don't know
yeah
if they got all my
okay
features right in this one, and I might have to improve on theirs. But yeah, so that's exciting that everybody will be able to get their faces into the game. One thing I am curious though is if they have like a database. So when you hire a knight to your court, they need to generate a face, and I wonder if they just do auto generation or if they have a fixed database of faces that will get into the court.
like from pictures that get sent in from fans, you mean, or generally?
Not just that, I think part of that, sure. Like for example, my face is my face going to be like, say, if you're hiring a new knight, will
Mhm.
my face become an option, right? Or is it just all automatically generated? When you hire a new knight, you just automatically get a generated face. Because I don't know if I'm a king or a knight in this picture. So um, it could be that they generated
Yeah.
only the king face, or sorry, not generated. You can make your king's face, but you can't make your knight's faces. And I'm curious what they're planning to do there.
Yeah. I'm not sure what, yeah, I'm not sure too what they want to do with it, but they encouraged us to upload our faces,
Yeah,
I think, to the um, on a community, on the forum of Knights of Honor 2, and then they want to put it into the game. And I think basically what just without what came up to my mind, without really giving it some deeper thought, that they have this database of general faces that they made by themselves, and they have also your face and the faces of the fans that put in their pictures,
I
which
really hope that's
I'm
what they
sure will
do. I
do.
hope
Yeah, and then it
they will
just
take.
shows up randomly.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I
yeah.
think.
I really hope they take fans' submissions of their faces on the forums and convert them into knight pictures, and then put that in the database. So when you recruit a knight, maybe one day all of a sudden you're recruiting yourself, and I think that will bring a lot of happiness to a lot of fans. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a great idea, and I don't know how much work it will take on their end. It feels like it would take not too much work, but who knows? Developing can be
I,
a big chore.
I'm I'm gonna for sure upload my phase two to the forum, and then if I uh, get the night with my face in a game, it feels like okay, I fucked up the game in front of the screen by playing it, but I also fucked up with my night, so I fucked up like twice.
That's terrible. Okay, I think we'll call it there.
Yeah,
Um, Thank you all for coming to our
yeah,
first Dev Diary number 10 traditions, where we summarize and comment. And I think
yeah.
we'll,
Thank you very much for tuning in, and
yeah,
see
tune
you
in to the next one,
next time, right?
hopefully.
Yeah. We
Okay.
don't know yet when we wanna do the next stream, but we for sure will do it the next time we get a new dev diary and a new dev stream. That's for
Yes.
sure.
Yes. Once the next Dev Diary comes out, we'll be popping out another one of these puppies.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks all for tuning in, and remember, let the sun always shine on
Oh,
you.
yeah. Let the sun always shine on you.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.